He turned our grocery list into a secret chat room, so I turned it into a goodbye. I was staring at a shopping list when my entire marriage dissolved in front of me. Not a dramatic argument, not a lipstick stain on a collar, not a suspicious hotel charge buried in a credit card statement, just a grocery note on my phone, milk, eggs, bread, the mundane architecture of a life I thought I knew, and then, below all of it, a message that rewired every single memory I had of the last 7 years. My name is Sarah. I'm 31 years old. I have a rescue beagle named Biscuit, a house with a leaky second bathroom that my husband Daniel kept promising he'd fix, and until 48 hours ago, I thought I had a marriage. Let me take you back to 6 weeks before that grocery list cracked my world open, because that's when I first noticed something was wrong, and I want you to understand how carefully I looked, how thoroughly I searched, and how completely he fooled me. Because the thing about Daniel wasn't that he was careless, it was that he was brilliant. He had thought of everything except me. 6 weeks ago, Daniel started sleeping with his phone face down on the nightstand. Now, I know what you're thinking, that's the oldest tale in the book, right? The face down phone. And you're right, it is, which is exactly why I didn't panic immediately. Daniel wasn't an idiot. He was an IT systems analyst. He knew that the face down phone is the first thing every suspicious spouse notices. So when I clocked it, I told myself I was being paranoid. Told myself maybe he was just more conscious of screen glare keeping him up at night. Told myself a lot of things that a woman in a comfortable marriage tells herself when the first hairline crack appears in the foundation. But the feeling didn't go away. It sat in my chest like a stone. I started paying attention in the way that feels ugly and shameful, the surveillance mode that no one wants to admit they've entered. I watched his face when his phone lit up. I noticed the angle of his shoulder when he typed. I cataloged the micro-expressions he made when he glanced at the screen, the small, involuntary twitch at the corner of his mouth that I'd spent 7 years learning to read. Something was there. I could feel it, but I couldn't find it. So I did what anyone in my position does when gut instinct overrides dignity. I checked. I'm not going to apologize for it. I went through his iMessages first. Completely clean. His work contacts, his brother Marcus, his college friend Pete who sends memes every Thursday without fail, a thread with his mom about her knee surgery. Nothing. No unfamiliar female names. No deleted conversation gaps. No messages that stopped mid-thread as though someone had been scrubbed from the record. I scrolled back 4 months. Nothing. I checked his WhatsApp. Same story. I looked at his Snapchat. Yes, I looked. I'm not proud. And the only people he'd snapped in recent memory were his coworkers doing something stupid at the office Christmas party. I checked the phone bill online. I printed it out. I literally sat at the kitchen table with a highlighter and went through every outgoing call and text for 3 months. There were no unknown numbers. No patterns of late-night calls. No suspicious frequency of contact with any single number I didn't recognize. He was clean. Every digital surface I could reach was immaculate. You seem stressed, he said one evening, coming into the kitchen where I was standing at the counter staring at nothing. He set his hand on my shoulder and I felt my skin crawl and hated myself for letting it. Just tired, I said. Work stuff. You sure? He tilted his head, and his eyes were so steady, so warm, so completely the eyes of the man I'd married. You know you can talk to me. I almost believed him. That's the worst part. I almost let the lack of evidence convince me I was losing my mind. I know, I said. I'm fine. He kissed my temple. He smelled like his same soap, the sandalwood one he'd used since college. Everything about him was familiar and safe, and I was standing right next to him feeling completely alone. Here's the thing nobody tells you about modern infidelity: the old methods of detection are obsolete. We've spent 15 years collectively learning to check text messages and call logs because that's how it worked in the early 2000s when cheating first went digital. We read advice columns and Reddit threads about checking iMessage and WhatsApp and Snapchat streaks. We look for second phones. We look for deleted apps. But Daniel worked in IT. He knew how people got caught. And he had found something beautiful in its simplicity, something hiding in plain sight, camouflaged inside the most boring, domestic, completely unsuspicious corner of our shared digital life. The weekly groceries note. We'd shared it for 3 years. It started because I kept forgetting to text him items when he was already at the store, and he suggested we just share a notes file that we could both edit in real time. It was perfect. I'd add Greek yogurt while he was in the dairy aisle and it would appear on his screen instantly. iCloud syncing. Beautiful, mundane, utterly unremarkable. For 3 years, that note was nothing but a living, breathing grocery list. Chicken thighs, dish soap, the fancy olive oil he liked, toilet paper, the whole archaeological record of our domestic life, one shopping trip at a time. I opened it on a Tuesday morning to add milk. I was standing in the kitchen in my pajamas, Biscuit pressed against my shins, coffee going cold on the counter. I tapped into the note, started scrolling down to the bottom to add my item, and my thumb kept scrolling. and kept scrolling. There was a huge gap below our most recent grocery entries, a massive stretch of blank white space that seemed to go on forever, and I almost stopped. I almost assumed I'd reached the end and pulled back, but my thumb kept going. And then the white space ended, and there was text. I want to be precise about what I felt in that moment, because shock is too small a word and devastation is too theatrical. What I felt was a specific, physical sensation, like the floor dropping 2 inches beneath my feet, like the air pressure in the room changed, like something that had been background static for 6 weeks suddenly resolved into a single, clear, terrible signal. The text read, "She leaves for her parents' house at 5 on Friday. Come over at 6. Leave the side door unlocked." I read it 4 times. 5. The word she kept hitting me in the sternum like a finger poking at a bruise. He had referred to me, his wife, the woman sleeping 3 feet away from him every night, the woman who shared this grocery list with him, the woman who had just been about to type milk into this very document, as she. A pronoun, a logistical obstacle, a schedule to work around. My hands were shaking. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips, in my jaw, behind my eyes. I scrolled up a little. There was more. A whole conversation, months of it, tucked below the grocery list like a secret room behind a bookshelf. They had been using the shared note as a chat room. Real-time, invisible, leaving no SMS trail, no call record, no third-party app to find. Just 2 people typing into opposite ends of a grocery list. Him on his phone, her on hers, the messages syncing instantly over iCloud like a whisper passed across a room that I was standing in the whole time. "Can you do Thursday?" "Not Thursday. She works from home Thursdays now." She again. Always she. Never my name. Never my wife. Just a pronoun, a complication, a set of hours to rat around. I sat down on the kitchen floor. I don't know when I did it. I just became aware that I was sitting on the tile with my back against the cabinet and Biscuit was trying to climb into my lap and my coffee was definitely cold now and I was holding my phone with both hands like it might escape. 6 weeks. 6 weeks I had looked everywhere and found nothing. Because he hadn't hidden it on his phone. He had hidden it inside mine. Wait, because it gets worse. And I need you to understand the full shape of what he built before I tell you what I did about it. I kept reading. I know I should have stopped. I know that every additional line was another dose of something poisonous. But I read the whole thing, every exchange, scrolling slowly, with the terrible focus of someone piecing together the exact geography of a disaster. Her name was Kristen. She worked in his office. I'd met her once, at the company holiday party 2 years ago. Dark hair, very pretty, gave me a firm handshake and made a joke about the open bar. I'd liked her. Of course I had. Why wouldn't I? She was completely charming and I had no reason to look at her as anything other than Daniel's cheerful colleague. The note told me they'd been together for at least 8 months. Probably longer. The earlier messages were thin, just logistics, but you could feel something warming beneath them. The gradual accumulation of intimacy. The shift from when can you get away to the casual, proprietary shorthand of 2 people who had started to feel like a unit. The way she wrote to him, even in the stilted format of a shared notes app, carried a specific weight. The way he responded, loose, unbuttoned, completely unlike the careful, measured Daniel who lived inside our marriage, told me everything about what she gave him that he didn't feel I could. There was one exchange that hit me harder than the rest. About 3 months back, she had written, "Does she know something? You've been weird this week." And he had written back, "No, she's just Sarah. She overthinks everything but she never actually looks. She's just Sarah. She overthinks everything but she never actually looks." 7 years. He had 7 years of data on me and he had concluded, confidently, that I was someone who would sense the wrongness and spiral into anxiety without ever landing on the truth. He had bet on my insecurity. He had used my own self-doubt as a security system. She's just Sarah. I sat with that sentence for a long time. I let it do what it needed to do to me. I let the shame of it move through and I watched it transform into something else on the other side, something quieter and harder and considerably more dangerous than either grief or rage. I opened the note. I scrolled all the way to the bottom. Below Daniel's last message, the one about Friday, about the side door, about the schedule of my departure, I placed my cursor and I began to type. My fingers were completely steady. That surprised me. I'd expected them to shake, but they didn't. I felt the way I imagine surgeons feel, focused, deliberate, operating in a zone where emotion is still present but has been routed to a different channel than the one controlling fine motor skills. I typed, "Actually, I'm staying home on Friday, but my divorce lawyer is available at 5. Enjoy the house, I'm taking the dog." I put the phone on the counter. I picked up my coffee. It was very cold. I drank it anyway. Then I went and found my suitcases. I want to describe the next 4 hours accurately, because I think it matters. Because what I felt, moving through my house and packing my things while Daniel was at work, was not the cinematic implosion that betrayal is supposed to produce. It was smaller than that, more surgical. I went through each room with a clear head and asked myself, what is mine? Not what I wanted, not what was sentimental, not what I could use as leverage. Just, what belonged to me before we merged our lives, and what had I built here that I wouldn't leave behind? I packed my clothes. I packed the framed photo of my mother and me from her 60th birthday that hung in the hallway, our hallway. I'd thought of it as ours, but my mother was in it and she was mine. I packed the box of letters from my grandmother. I packed Biscuit's food, his bowls, his ridiculous stuffed hedgehog that he'd had since he was a puppy and carried everywhere like a talisman. I did not take the fancy olive oil, even though I was the one who always bought it. I left that for him. A small, mean, precise gesture. I called my friend Dara from the driveway, 2 suitcases in the trunk and Biscuit buckled into the back seat with his seatbelt harness because I am, apparently, still a responsible dog owner even in the middle of the apocalypse. I need to stay with you for a while, I said when she picked up. There was a half-second pause. Dara has known me for 19 years. She can read a sentence the way other people read paragraphs. How long? She asked. Until I figure out the next thing. Okay, she said. No questions. No drama. I'll make up the guest room. Thank you. My voice cracked on just that. Not on anything that had happened. Just on those 2 words and her response to them. I'll explain everything when I get there. You don't have to explain anything, Dara said. Just drive safe. I did not hear from Daniel until 4:17 that afternoon. I was sitting on Dara's couch with Biscuit asleep across my feet when my phone lit up with his name and I felt nothing, which was almost more frightening than feeling something. I let it ring. He called 3 more times in the next 20 minutes. Then a text, Sarah, where are you? I'm home and your stuff is gone. Please call me. Then, 4 minutes later, Sarah, please, let me explain. Let me explain. The 3 most hollow words in the English language, issued by someone who has already explained everything there is to explain through the evidence they thought they'd hidden. I showed Dara the texts. She handed me a glass of wine and said nothing, which was exactly right. He called again at 6:15. I watched the phone ring and thought about Kristen standing at the side door, the door he was supposed to have left unlocked, waiting. I wondered if she'd already seen my message in the note. I wondered what the expression on her face had looked like when she read it. I found, somewhat to my own surprise, that I didn't feel any particular animosity toward her, not the burning, pointed kind I might have expected. What she'd done was wrong, yes, but Daniel was the one who had made vows to me. Daniel was the one who had decided I was too predictable to look. She's just Sarah. She overthinks everything but she never actually looks. I looked, Daniel. At 6:47, I texted him back. 1 sentence, my lawyer will be in touch. He called 6 more times that night. I turned my phone face down on Dara's nightstand, face down, like his phone, the gesture so perfectly recursive that it almost made me laugh, and then it almost made me cry, and then I decided I was too tired for either and I closed my eyes and listened to Biscuit breathing at the foot of the bed until I fell asleep. I have an appointment with a family law attorney tomorrow morning. Dara is coming with me. She's cleared her schedule, which is very Dara. She doesn't ask questions, she just shows up with her calendar already rearranged around your disaster. My mother called me this morning. I told her some of it, not everything, enough. She was quiet for a moment, and then she said, come home when you're ready. There's no rush. My mother has never been a woman who deals in grand declarations, and that sentence, simple, unhurried, a door held open without insistence, was the first thing that made me feel something warm since Tuesday morning. I've talked to a few people. I've started telling the story and watching their faces change as I get to the grocery note part. The invisible chat room. The beautiful, stupid, completely devastating simplicity of it. iCloud sync. A shared document. The most boring piece of domestic technology we owned, repurposed into an affairs communication infrastructure, and none of the traditional detection methods would have ever touched it. He was right that I'm someone who overthinks. He was right that I spiral. But spiraling and looking aren't mutually exclusive, Daniel. Sometimes the anxiety that makes you check 6 times is also the anxiety that checks the 7th time, the place nobody thought to lock. I don't know how the next months are going to unfold. I know there are proceedings ahead of me that are going to be expensive and painful and probably longer than I want them to be. I know there are going to be days that are much harder than today. I know Biscuit will be confused about the move and will probably sulk about it in the particular beagle way of standing in a new room and staring at you with deep, reproachful accusation. But I also know this. I walked out of my own house with steady hands and a clear head. I did not beg. I did not scream. scream. I did not give him the catharsis of watching me fall apart in real time. I left him a message in our grocery list, right below the olive oil and the dish soap and the accumulated record of our ordinary life, and I took my dog and I drove away. She's just Sarah, he told his girlfriend. Yeah, she is. And Sarah is done. So here's what I want to know from everyone reading this. Was I wrong to leave without a confrontation? Should I have looked him in the eye and made him say it out loud? Or was the message in the note cold, precise, and impossible to misread, exactly the kind of ending a man who hid in a grocery list deserves? Tell me what you think, because right now, I'm sitting on my best friend's couch with my dog across my feet and a divorce attorney's number in my phone, and for the first time in 6 weeks, the stone in my chest is just a little bit lighter.
If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.